Hello, welcome back to my podcast Astro Mary, where we're learning a little bit about astrology, taking it nice and easy so that we're not going to get overwhelmed. And the last couple of episodes we've been looking at different chart shapes that a birth chart can have. Well, this week we're going to get into something a bit more, I wouldn't say more important or more astrological, but we're going to get into something that is very important to astrologers and astrology, and it's a thing called the Ascendant. Now, if I was just to give you a quick rundown of what a birth chart comprises of or how it's constructed, when you look at it you see a circle. All birth charts now are made in a circle, but back in the day the medieval astrologers actually used to make them as a square. It doesn't matter one way or the other, but they're made as a circle. And if you imagine that in the centre of the circle that's the Earth spinning in space, then it gives you just a little idea of what a birth chart is all about. All it is a representation of where the planets were on the date and the time and the location that you were born, as if you were on the Earth looking up at the sky on the day that you were born. Type of idea. So I did suggest that you go to astro.com, the website, and make yourself up an account. And please make sure every time you make a chart that you go to the section of the chart that's called the section of the site, that's called extended chart selection. So you go to astro.com, you click on the left hand side there where it says free horoscope, scroll yourself right across to the right hand side of that little window that comes up, and underneath the section that says drawings and calculations, I'd like you to click on the extended chart selection, because in that segment of the website it allows us to be able to make our birth chart up and to use the system which I use, which is called equal house. But again, I'll come into more about what equal house means in another podcast. But when you get to this, you put your data in and you put the name of the person, all the rest of it, make sure you're always ticking the box where it says house system. You're ticking that and you're choosing the option that says equal, because the default system that all these birth charts are constructed with is called Placidus, which means your birth chart looks very uneven. And I don't think it's very easy to learn astrology using that method. So always make sure your chart's constructed with equal house. Anyway, you don't need to know any of that to understand what we're going to be talking about today. So today we're talking about the Ascendant. It's called the ascending sign. Now, before I got into astrology, I just thought, you were a sign of the zodiac, you were a Pisces or a Capricorn, an Aquarius or whatever the heck you were, and that was it. I didn't know that there was anything else to do with astrology, even though my auntie was heavily into astrology and used to make birth charts up. I didn't know a thing about it. She told me a couple of things and I got them all wrong, but I just thought that you were that sign of the zodiac, and I thought it was because of the certain dates, but it isn't like that actually. Astrology is not just your sun sign. What you read about in the magazines and the papers and on the websites and stuff is a very bastardized version of what astrology is actually all about. Because back in the day when the astrologers first invented it, they didn't just talk about people's sign of the zodiac. They made charts up. That was it. I mean, this whole thing has been whittled down and shortened and made into something, I suppose it's more easily digestible, but apparently it didn't start getting fashionable, sun sign astrology, until around about the 1930s, and one of the earlier newspapers to run an astrological column was actually the Daily Express. But there you go, that's a bit of history. So today we're talking about the Ascendant, and that's determined by your time of birth. So the three ladies that have volunteered for today are Yasemin, Kay and Niki, and I've constructed their charts because they know reasonably well what time of day they were born, because this bit of astrology won't work unless you know your actual time or within around about 2 hours, because the ascending sign will change sign every 2 hours. Because if you think about it, we're saying that astrology is 12 signs of the zodiac, and we're making it as a circle, and you can divide a circle up by 12 because there's 360 degrees in it, and so each sign of the zodiac is 30 degrees big. We're doing a bit of maths here, and so depending on your time of birth, then your ascending sign is going to change. Now, I remember learning about ascendant signs, or the rising sign, or whatever you want to call it, and I did find out what mine was. But it took me a couple of years to actually work out what an ascendant was. And it wasn't until I saw an illustration in I can't remember what the magazine or the article or the book was now, but in it, the person had drawn a landscape of, it was a pretty picture actually. They'd drawn a field with some horses in it, I think it was, and then they'd superimposed a birth chart over the top of it. And it was at that point that I realised that the ascending sign hadn't got anything to do with anything physical on Earth. It was something to do with our orbit and where we are in relation to the other bits that happen. So when we say that we're a sign of the zodiac, that's because the sun, literally the glowing ball in the sky, is in a certain segment of the sky. But the ascending sign is, say, the day that you were born, Mum had looked out of the hospital window and had looked east, okay? On the horizon, the sign that would be rising, because it's called the rising sign or the ascendant, that's the sign of the zodiac that is your ascending sign. So there you are. Imagine Mum's in the hospital looking out of the window to the east. And there's all these different segments of the sky that are going to change every 2 hours because we move. And as you know, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So if you were born during the day in your birth chart, your sun will be above the horizon, and if you were born late in the day, then your sun in a birth chart will be below the horizon, just like it is in real life, because obviously when the sun goes down, it's dark. So your ascendant sign is the beginning of your chart. It's the moment that you come into the world. Now, in Yasemin's case, the day that she was born, even though she's a Cancer, her rising sign is Virgo. So the sign that's on the ascendant, if Mum had looked out of the window to the eastern segment of the horizon, the sign of the zodiac, so the sign of that bit of the sky, was Virgo on the day that you were born. So there she is, she's a Cancer, and I'll talk to you directly now, Yasemin. There you are, you're a Cancer, but your rising sign or your ascending sign, however you want to call it, I call it the ascendant, but the astrologers can call it lots of different things. It's the rising sign, is Virgo. So when you look at your birth chart, because I've sent you a copy, you'll see the initials in capitals on the left-hand segment of the chart, AC. So AC is astro shorthand for ascendant, yeah? And in your chart, it's in the sign of Virgo. And people that got a Virgo ascendant feel much better when they make lists and things are ordered, and it doesn't have to be tidied, but they sort of have a very good attention to detail. People with Virgo ascendant are generally concerned about health matters, like things to be clean generally, and normally have somebody with a Virgo ascendant can be quite particular or maybe a teeny bit picky. But your ascendant sign doesn't outrule what your sun sign is. Your sun sign is still Cancer. You're still concerned with family, mummies, babies. Those things are still really, really important to you. But the way that you look at life, the way you tackle life, your knee-jerk reaction is going to be through a Virgo lens, because the sign that was, as I say, rising on the day that you were born is very, very important, because it does colour how your life is going to manifest itself. Now, in your particular case, Yasemin, in your chart, you do have 2 planets in the first section of your chart, which we'll discuss at another point. So they're going to again change things slightly, but ostensibly, and most importantly, that Virgo ascendant, you need things to be particular. You want things to have a certain order to them. You do feel better with that. Yeah? So that's a quick chat about Yasemin's chart. So next we've got Niki. Hello Niki, hi. Your ascendant sign, which I think you know already because I'm sure I did your chart in 2015, but your rising sign is Sagittarius. So people with a Sagittarius rising sign or ascendant Sagittarius is the sign of long distance travel, further education, philosophy, and looking at life in a sort of a higher plane. That spirituality, that whole shebang is really important for people with Sagittarius rising. So in your chart, your sun sign is Leo, hooray, sunny person, but your ascending sign is Sagittarius. And incidentally, Sagittarius is the sign of the centaur, and I can't tell you the amount of people I know that've got Sagittarius ascendant that do actually like horse riding and probably learn how to do it when they were little. I mean, there might not be in your case, but I have come across a number of clients that have got Sagittarius ascendant do like horses or even horse riding. So your ascending sign is Sagittarius, which is a fire sign. So in Yasemin's case, Virgo is an earth sign. So your rising sign is Sagittarius, your sun sign is Leo. Both of those are fire signs. People with Sagittarius ascendant also tend to like travel. So if you want to really cheer up a Saggy, tell them where you're going to take them on holiday. They love that. So thank you, Niki. And next we have Kay. Hello, Kay. Hi. Now, Kay has a very interesting chart. So there she is. She's a sun sign Capricorn. And I wrote the book, How to Cheer Up a Capricorn. And she keeps saying she just doesn't understand. You know, that's not her case. Well, it isn't her case. Because actually, in Kay's case, she's not an atypical Capricorn at all. She's not to say that Capricorns are gloomy, but she doesn't have a gloomy outlook on life, because she's got Moon in Aquarius, but we'll come to that at another point. And her rising sign, because she said to me today that her parents were agreed on her time of birth, so we can calculate her ascendant very accurately. And her rising sign is Libra. So somebody with a Libra ascendant really doesn't like people arguing. I mean, my husband has that, my best friend has that. People with a Libra ascendant just don't like arguments. They'll do anything to prevent an argument from happening. Not to say that they won't start one, that's a different matter altogether, but they really prefer people to get on nicely with each other. And normally speaking, somebody with a Libra ascendant prefers things to look nice, you know, things that look pretty or beautiful. In fact, I've got a sister who's got a Libra ascendant. She's heavily into how things look. So Libra ascendant is Libra is the sign of the peacemaker. Libra is the sign of wanting everybody to get on. So in Kay's case, you feel much better when everybody's getting on, not terribly into arguments and stuff. So your rising sign is determined by your time of birth. So when you go to the astro.com website and you put your data in, make sure you put your time of birth. If you don't know it, just use 6 a.m, but your ascendant sign won't be correct. You can use 6 a.m. just as the default until you find out what your time is. And if you never find it out, I will explain in another podcast what to do. So your ascendant sign is determined by your time of birth, and it's as if someone were looking out the window and it's the sign that is rising on the eastern horizon. And in astrology, it's also the segment of the chart where it starts. So it sort of starts at the 8:45 position. So when we're numbering things, we start with AC, the ascendant. So that's where your chart starts. It does go anti-clockwise. I can't remember why. Don't ask me. You'll have to ask somebody that's into astronomy. But the ascendant sign is the beginning part of your chart where it all starts, AC. So that's how you view the world. It was how you came into the world. You came into the world under that particular sign. It doesn't detract from what your sun sign is. You're still the sign of the zodiac that you are. So in Kay's case, she's still the Capricorn. She's still, the goat that wants to climb to the top, but she's got sun in the 4th house. So Kay, in your case, the family is absolutely so important to you. Family is the thing. But Libra ascendant, terribly polite. In fact, I do know that you're polite because I've met you quite a few times and you are a very polite person. So your ascendant sign is how you tackle life. And because it was the moment of birth, when you're under stress, this is a little tip, when you're under stress, your ascendant sign comes out much more. Because it was the stress of birth, so it's all about, your very moment of coming into the world is in that sign. So it really does colour quite a lot about how you will tackle your life as you get on in your life. So in Kay, in your case, you've got Libra. It's very, very important to feel peaceful, for things to feel nice and peaceful and happy and fluffy and lovely and stuff. So when you're stressed, the first thing you're going to do is going to make sure nobody's yelling at someone. So that's a little bit of information about ascendant sign. So when you've made your chart, have a look at it, have a look at your ascendant, go to astro.com. It will give you free what your ascendant sign means, what your rising sign and ascendant sign means, the interpretation of it. And obviously everybody knows what sign of the zodiac they are, but we will come on to people that think they're born on a cusp, because there is no such thing as a cusp, but I'll come on to that in another episode. So that's just a teeny bit of information there about the ascendant sign. Most important part of your chart, if you know your birth time, it's how you tackle life, how you came into the world, is determined by the sign that was rising on the eastern horizon, as if somebody were looking out the window. If you were born late in the day, which in Kay's case she was born very late in the day, the sun will be below the horizon in the chart, like if you divide the chart in half, and at that 8:45 position, that AC position, that's where your chart starts. It's the beginning part of it. So thank you very much for listening. My name's Mary English. I'm the author of 15 plus astrology books. There's another one in in production that will be out later on this year. I do hope you've enjoyed listening today, and I hope you can tune in again next week. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.